What does it mean when someone else big leagues you? And how do you deal with it? I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. Right here on my channel, I make videos for fellow professional wrestlers at every single stage of their career. And I do this because when I was just starting out, for my first 3 years in professional wrestling, I didn't have a coach to teach me, nor did I have a mentor to guide me. And I really do believe that lack of access to veteran wisdom, knowledge, and experience played a significant role in my failure to achieve my ultimate career goal. And I don't want that to happen to you. Today, we're talking about a phenomenon in professional wrestling no one had ever prepared me for. We're going to talk about what happens when someone else big leagues you. Let's start with the most obvious part, shall we? What does that phrase even mean? What does it mean if you are getting big leagued? Well, to me, getting big leagued is when you are blown off, when you are ignored by someone who imagines that they are such a massive global superstar that they no longer need to bother showing common courtesy, professionalism, or respect to some far lesser star in the world of professional wrestling. That's what it is when someone else big leagues you. They treat you like you are beneath their notice. And yeah, this has absolutely happened to me. More than 10 years ago now, when I was NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, I was wrestling on a card in New Jersey. I was defending that belt against this fabulously talented Swiss wrestler. I wonder whatever became of him. When an old-timey veteran who had last been relevant in the 1980s big leagued me in front of the entire locker room. Even though we had met dozens of times before, I got up to shake his hand and say hello, and he completely ignored me in front of everyone, even to the degree that another veteran in the locker room called him out and yelled at him with some rather colorful language we don't present here on YouTube for doing it. And I just stood there with my hand outstretched, looking like an idiot. Just so there's no misunderstanding, let's more neatly box in the definition of getting big leagued, shall we? So let's flip the pancake over and imagine a scenario in which you are at an event alongside Stone Cold Steve Austin. And throughout the event, he is so busy, constantly being swarmed by people who need a moment of his time, that when you go to introduce yourself, you get slighted in the buzz that's going on around Steve Austin. Is this an example of getting big leagued? In my opinion, no, it's not. He's just a really busy guy. That example actually just made me think of a real event from my own career. Back in the 1990s, I was booked on a show with Dan Severn. And this was in an era when he was dividing his time between the UFC and professional wrestling. In addition to which, I think he was launching his own brand at the time called the Danger Zone. Regardless, the entire time that he was at the event, he was getting phone calls left and right. He had all kinds of business transactions that he needed to be dealing with. He did not have a moment to himself until it was time for his music to play and he had to go to the ring. Does that mean in some way, shape, or form that Dan Severn big leagued the whole locker room? No, I don't think so. This was just someone who was very busy having a really busy day. Sidebar. May I tell you a quick story about Dan Severn, please? At the very end of the 90s, Dan and I happened to be booked on the same card down in Texas. And on this particular evening, I suffered one of the worst injuries of my entire career. Long story short, a metal spike went into my forehead and tore me open to behind my ear. So basically, like a giant flap of my scalp was loose. It was bloody and gross. I could not finish the match, and they just whisked me off to the emergency room as soon as it was possible. So I spent all night in the ER being put back together, but I still had to make it to the airport in the morning because all the wrestlers were flying back home. I didn't want to miss my return flight. When I got to the airport, as you might imagine, I looked horrific. And without ever saying a word to me, Dan just went up to the check-in counter, used his frequent flyer miles, and got my coach seat changed to a first class seat so I would be more comfortable for the journey home. And he never came over and said a word about it to me. I didn't even know until I went up with my boarding pass to get in, and they said, "You've been moved into first class." And I was like, "What's going on here? Mike Quackenbush doesn't travel first class." And they said, "No, that gentleman over there took care of it for you." And he never even glanced up from his work. He was just busy taking care of the stuff Dan Severn has to take care of. That was such a generous and classy thing for a guy who was senior to me in the business to do. He didn't have to do it, and he wasn't doing it to be thanked. Years go by, and finally, I happened to bump into Dan in the lobby of a hotel in New Orleans, Louisiana. And he was just there having the continental breakfast. That's the same reason I was there. And so I pulled up a chair and I just said, "Dan, blah, 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 this trip to Texas, yada, yada, yada. Do you remember that you took your frequent flyer miles and got me bumped up into first class? Because that meant the world to me that you did that." I tell that to everybody if they ever ask me, "Do I have any Dan Severn stories?" I'm so thankful that you showed me that bit of kindness. And of course, he had no memory of that whatsoever. It was like it never even happened. If you're getting something out of today's video, take a second right now, please, and leave a like-a-palooza down below. Every like counts. It's my experience that no matter who it is big leaguing another, whether it is a genuine superstar or it is someone who imagines themselves to be a superstar, it makes no difference. This is rude and it's unprofessional. And of course, I did take care there to add in the distinction, people who imagine themselves to be superstars. This is the phenomenon I think of as a big fish in a little pond. You know what I mean by that? Here's an example of a big fish in a little pond. Let's say that I am the longest tenured veteran wrestler in the country of Liechtenstein. You know Liechtenstein, right? It's that little one sandwiched in between Austria and Switzerland, and it has produced absolutely no professional wrestlers of any note whatsoever. Spare me your Cedric Von Hausen remarks down in the comments, please. So imagine that's me. I'm the grizzled old vet of the Liechtenstein circuit, and I walk around acting like I'm Dwayne Johnson because I've been around the longest, I've done the most in this very small pond. And I treat the other wrestlers with disdain. I ignore them. Who did you ever beat? Were you ever in the Prince of Liechtenstein Cup? Did you even know that was the biggest tournament on Channel 4 back in the 70s? That's what it means to be a big fish in a little pond. In some narrow context, you might be a big deal. But in a bigger context, in the big pond, you would not be a big fish. No star from Liechtenstein ever has been. Of the handful of times I've been big leagued in pro wrestling locker rooms, the majority have been big fish in little pond scenarios. It hasn't actually been a true bona fide legend or superstar of wrestling blowing me off or ignoring me. It's just that these people, they stay in these small ponds that make them feel big by comparison, when in reality, they're just another journeyman, just another working pro out there taking the bumps and making the towns. But they will carry themselves in the locker room as if they were John Cena or Kenta Kobashi, even though they aren't. So, what do you do? What do you do when this happens to you? When someone big leagues you, they ignore you, they blow you off, they disrespect you. You could chase after them, start yelling at them, cause a scene, maybe even start a fight. But that's an overreaction. And if you succeeded in starting a fight in the locker room, regardless of whether you win or you lose, you take some lumps, you end up in an ambulance, no matter what, you're going to get fired for doing it. It is an overreaction that you will grow to regret. And take it from a guy who's had a laundry list of embarrassing overreactions in his career. You will regret it. My tactic has always been, in these situations, wait a good amount of time. Not 15 minutes, not 30 minutes, a good amount of time. So if it happened before the show begins, wait until their match is over and look for an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation. And at that time, then make a second approach to say hello, introduce yourself, or whatever it is that went afoul earlier on in the day. And here's why I've found success with that. In the moment, anyone can be a jerk, and big leaguing another wrestler, that is a jerk move. But we have no way of knowing what's going on with someone else. Maybe they just got out of a heated argument with their significant other and hung up the call a moment before you went up to try and introduce yourself or say hello. Maybe they got called into a closed-door meeting where a business deal they were hoping to finish blew up in their face. Maybe the booker just told them their angle for the night has been canceled and they're feeling grumpy about it. These are things we have no way of knowing nor controlling. But to try and judge someone entirely by their behavior in one moment, whether that person is a big superstar, a bona fide legend in wrestling, a big fish in a small pond, or just another working pro, that's foolhardy. If I saw you having a jerkish moment with someone, would it be a fair assessment then to assume you must be a big jerk to everyone under all conditions everywhere that you go? No, that's probably not a fair assessment, right? That's why I just wait a while. If something's gone wrong, I just need to back off. I don't want to engage. I don't want to put myself in the middle of that in any way, shape, or form. I want to let whatever is happening with them pass. And I can tell you from my own experience doing this, every time I've made the effort to go and re-engage an hour or two later, the results have always been cordial and professional. To get the right result, all I had to be was patient. It's no fun getting ignored, being blown off. No one likes getting big leagued. I don't. But I also know what it is to be so busy on the day of a wrestling event, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I know what it is to come out of a heated conversation or meeting unable to rein in those really extreme emotions, and I just need to make some time and some space for myself so that I can decompress and come down off of that emotional peak. And the plain and simple truth is, no one is a jerk 24/7. You couldn't keep it up if you tried. It's too exhausting. And even when I've been a big jerk to people, am I a big jerk all the time, always? No, I'm not. When I'm in that state of mind, I just need to go and get my head screwed back on straight so I can get back to work or get back to life. And maybe hearing all of this doesn't reduce the sting you might feel if you get big leagued by someone, especially in front of a full locker room. I know it can be embarrassing, but you can end that whole interaction before you head home for the night on a positive note if you're willing to be patient and you can demonstrate what a great locker room diplomat you are. If you want to be a great locker room diplomat, if you want to transform yourself into the kind of wrestler promoters love to book on their cards, well, I know just where you need to start. It's the video appearing on screen right now. And I want to offer some thanks to all of my great patrons at every level, at the master level, at the troubadour level, even at the apprentice level. It's thanks to all of these people that I am able to continue on with my work here at Till We Make It. Thanks.